Most people believe accountability begins with discipline. They think it starts with forcing themselves to do what is hard. They think it is about pushing through when they don't feel like it. But that's not where accountability truly begins. Accountability does not start with action. It starts with awareness. You cannot take responsibility for what you refuse to see. Every day, we make hundreds of choices. Some are small, some are invisible, some feel insignificant in the moment, and yet those tiny decisions quietly shape who we become. The problem is not that people make bad choices. The problem is that most people don't notice the choices they are making at all. They move through their days on autopilot, reacting to what happens instead of reflecting on what they are doing. And when results don't match expectations, they don't ask what part of it was theirs. They ask why life is unfair. Awareness changes that. The daily review is not about listing tasks. It is not about productivity. It is not about proving that you were busy. It is about asking a far more important question: what actually happened today? Not the story you want to believe, not the version that protects your ego, the truth. Because growth does not happen when we feel good about ourselves. Growth happens when we are willing to see ourselves clearly. Think about how often we explain instead of examine. When something doesn't go as planned, we immediately look outward. The timing was wrong. The system is broken. People didn't cooperate. Circumstances were difficult. Sometimes those things are true. But when they become our default explanation, we lose something far more valuable than comfort. We lose ownership. Accountability begins the moment you stop asking, why did this happen to me? Start asking, what did I do or not do that contributed to this outcome? That question is uncomfortable. And that is precisely why most people avoid it. We like the idea of improvement. We like the language of growth. But we resist the mirror because the mirror does not flatter. It reveals. The daily review is that mirror. At the end of each day, you are given a choice. You can distract yourself until sleep arrives, or you can pause long enough to observe your own behavior, not to judge it, not to shame it, but to understand it. What did I say mattered today? Where did my time actually go? What did I avoid? What did I prioritize? What did I do that aligned with the person I claim I want to become? And where did I choose comfort over commitment? This is awareness. And awareness is the foundation of accountability. Because without awareness, discipline becomes blind force. You push harder without knowing where you are going. You exhaust yourself trying to be better without understanding what better actually requires. You confuse effort with progress. But when you see clearly, everything changes. When you notice that every day you plan to work on your craft but always delay it, you are no longer guessing why you are stuck. When you recognize that your energy drops every time you say yes to things that don't align with your priorities, you understand why you feel drained. When you realize that you spend more time consuming than creating, more time reacting than building, you stop wondering why your results don't match your ambition. Awareness removes mystery, and once there is no mystery, there is no excuse. This is why accountability does not begin with punishment. It begins with clarity. You are not trying to prove that you are good or bad. You are trying to see what is real, because you cannot change what you do not acknowledge. Many people avoid this process because they fear what they will find. They are afraid of discovering that they are the common denominator in many of their own frustrations. They are afraid that the story they tell themselves about who they are may not fully match how they actually live. But the truth is this: awareness is not meant to make you feel smaller. It is meant to make you stronger. When you see your patterns, you gain power over them. Without awareness, habits control you. With awareness, you can choose differently. This is what the daily review offers. Not motivation, not hype, but perspective. And perspective is what separates those who repeat the same year over and over from those who actually evolve. Because growth is not about dramatic changes. It is about small corrections, made consistently, guided by honest observation. Think about the idea of accountability. Most people associate it with external pressure, deadlines, bosses, rules, consequences. But real accountability is internal. It is the moment you hold yourself responsible even when no one else is watching. It is when you refuse to outsource ownership of your life to circumstances, people, or luck. But you cannot hold yourself responsible for something you are unaware of. You cannot correct what you do not notice. That is why awareness always comes first. The daily review is the moment you stop performing for the world and start being honest with yourself. It is where you confront the gap between intention and action. Not to criticize yourself, but to understand yourself, and understanding is the doorway to change. You begin to see that your life is not shaped by big decisions alone. It is shaped by what you tolerate, what you repeat, and what you ignore. You begin to notice how often you say you value growth, but choose comfort. How often you claim discipline matters, but avoid structure. How often you want change, but resist the habits that make change possible. This is not about guilt. It is about responsibility. Because responsibility is not a burden. It is a privilege. When you accept that your choices matter, you also accept that your future is not random. It is being written by what you do today. And the only way to write it intentionally is to first read what you have already written. Every day, the daily review is how you read your own life. It is where you stop blaming the past and start learning from it. It is where you stop hoping tomorrow will be different and start deciding how it will be different. It is where you transform awareness into action. But it all begins with the courage to see. Not once, not occasionally, but daily. Because accountability is not an event. It is a practice. And the first step of that practice is awareness. If you want to grow, do not ask for more motivation. Ask for more honesty. If you want discipline, do not start with force. Start with clarity. If you want a better future, do not wait for the perfect moment. Begin by understanding this one. Look at your day, not the version you hoped for, the version you lived. That is where accountability begins. Most people believe that change comes from big moments, a surge of motivation, a dramatic decision, a powerful speech that finally flips a switch inside them. They wait for the day they feel ready, inspired, unstoppable. And when that feeling fades, as it always does, they assume something is wrong with them. They think they lack discipline. They think they lack drive. They think they lack what others seem to have. But the truth is far simpler and far more hopeful. Lasting growth does not come from intensity. It comes from consistency. Intensity is exciting. It makes us feel powerful for a moment. We wake up one day determined to transform everything. We make bold promises. We create ambitious plans. We tell ourselves this time is different. And for a few days, sometimes a few weeks, we move with force. We work harder. We push longer. We demand more from ourselves than ever before. Then life happens. Energy dips. Doubt creeps in. The routine becomes ordinary. The excitement disappears. And because we built our change on feeling instead of structure, we stop. Not because we are incapable, but because intensity was never designed to last. Consistency is different. Consistency is quiet. It does not make headlines. It does not feel heroic. It does not give you the rush of a dramatic beginning. But it does something far more powerful. It builds identity. You do not become disciplined by having one perfect week. You become disciplined by showing up again and again, especially on the days when nothing feels extraordinary. You do not become confident because of one victory. You become confident because you keep your promises to yourself when no one is watching. That is what the daily review protects. It shifts the focus from how hard you went today to how faithfully you showed up, because accountability is not about how intense your effort was. It is about how consistent your behavior is. Most people measure their progress emotionally. They ask, did I feel productive today? But feelings are unreliable. Some days you will feel unstoppable. Other days you will feel heavy, distracted, uninspired. If your standard for success depends on how you feel, your growth will always be fragile. Consistency gives you a different standard. Instead of asking, did I do everything perfectly? You ask, did I do what I said I would do, even in a small way? That question changes everything. Because now, progress is not reserved for your best days. It becomes available on your hardest ones. The daily review is where this shift becomes real. It is where you stop evaluating your day based on intensity and start evaluating it based on alignment. Did my actions match my values? Did I take at least one step toward what matters? Did I honor my commitments, even imperfectly? When you review your day with this lens, you begin to see that consistency is not about doing more. It is about doing what matters repeatedly. And repetition is how change compounds. We often underestimate the power of small repeated actions because they do not feel impressive in the moment. 1 page written, 1 workout completed, 1 difficult conversation faced, 1 hour focused. None of these seem life-changing on their own, but over time they reshape your identity. You stop being someone who tries to be disciplined and become someone who simply is. You stop seeing growth as something you chase and start experiencing it as something you live. Intensity seeks transformation over it. Consistency builds it daily. And accountability is the bridge between intention and consistency. The daily review is not asking, how much did I push? It is asking, did I show up again? Because showing up again is what separates those who change from those who repeat. Most people quit not because their goals are too big, but because their habits are too inconsistent. They rely on motivation instead of structure. They wait to feel ready instead of building a system that works even when they don't. Consistency does not require you to be extraordinary. It requires you to be reliable. And reliability is not glamorous, but it is transformative. When you review your day honestly, you begin to notice something important. The days that move you forward are rarely the days when you feel the most inspired. They are the days when you simply refuse to break the chain. When you choose action over excuse. When you keep your promise to yourself, even when it would be easy not to. This is why accountability must be daily, not weekly, not monthly, daily. Because consistency is built in the small, ordinary moments that most people overlook. The daily review gives those moments weight. It reminds you that today mattered, that what you chose to do or not do was not neutral. It was a vote for the person you are becoming. 1 day of intensity is a spark. Many days of consistency are a fire. And here is the paradox. Consistency actually creates motivation, not the other way around. ND. We often believe we must feel motivated to act, but in reality, action creates motivation. When you see yourself show up repeatedly, something changes in how you see yourself. You begin to trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, discipline no longer feels like punishment. It feels like integrity. The daily review reinforces that trust. Each night you look back and ask, did I do what I said I would do today? And when the answer is yes, even in a small way, you strengthen your identity as someone who follows through. When the answer is no, you do not hide from it. You learn from it. You adjust. You recommit. This is how consistency is built, not through perfection, but through honest repetition. Most people fail not because they lack ability, but because they lack rhythm. They start strong, then disappear. They go all in, then burn out. They mistake exhaustion for effort and urgency for progress, but progress is not loud, it is steady. Think about anything in your life that truly matters. Relationships, health, mastery, trust, none of these are built in bursts. They are built in patterns, in the quiet decision to show up again tomorrow. That is what accountability in action really looks like. Not dramatic declarations, not public promises, but private consistency. The daily review is the moment you decide whether today was a one-time effort or part of a longer story. It is where you either close the day with excuses or with clarity. Because every day you skip reflection, you make it easier to skip commitment. And every day you return to it, you strengthen the habit of showing up. Consistency is not about being perfect. It is about being persistent. You will have days when you fall short, days when you break your own rules, days when life interrupts your plans. The goal is not to avoid these days. The goal is to not let them become your pattern. And that is only possible when you are willing to look at your behavior regularly and honestly. The daily review keeps you close to your standards. It prevents drift. It reminds you who you said you wanted to be, not occasionally, not when it feels exciting, but every day, because the future you want is not built by how hard you go once. It is built by how faithfully you return. Show up, review, adjust, repeat. That is consistency, and consistency is what makes accountability real. Most people think that progress is measured by activity. They think that if they are busy, moving fast, checking boxes, they are growing. They confuse motion for momentum. They confuse effort for results. And in the process, they rarely stop to ask the question that actually matters: am I moving in the right direction? Reflection is what transforms action into progress. Without it, effort is blind. Without it, mistakes are repeated. Without it, ambition is wasted. This is why the daily review is so critical. It is not simply a habit. It is the mechanism that turns reaction into intention, chaos into clarity, activity into advancement. Think about it. Every day you do things. Some are deliberate, some are unconscious, some are small and seem meaningless. Yet, over time, those small actions compound. They create patterns. Patterns lead to habits. Habits lead to identity. And identity, more than any plan or goal, defines your results. The question is, are those patterns intentional, or are you simply drifting? Are habits leading you toward the life you claim to want or away from it? Reflection is the tool that allows you to see the answer. It is the moment you pause and say, what did I do today? What worked? What didn't? What moved me closer to my purpose? And what pulled me away? And here's the truth. Most people do not ask these questions. They move from one task to another, one meeting to another, one distraction to another, hoping that progress will magically appear. But it does not. Growth is not an accident. Progress is not automatic. It is deliberate. The daily review forces deliberation. It forces you to confront reality without filters. It forces you to face not only what you accomplished, but also what you avoided. It forces you to see where your actions aligned with your goals and where they did not. And in doing so, it gives you the power to correct course before small errors become irreparable patterns. People often fear reflection because it is uncomfortable. It exposes gaps between who we are and who we want to be. It shines a light on inconsistencies in our choices. It reveals the ways we let fear, laziness, distraction, or doubt dictate our behavior. It is much easier to stay busy than to confront these truths. It is much easier to tell yourself that you are trying, that effort is enough, that tomorrow is another day. But reflection does not exist to make you feel guilty. It exists to make you aware. Awareness is freedom. Awareness is control. Awareness is the first step toward intentional change. Once you see clearly, you can act deliberately. Once you see clearly, you can identify the habits that serve you and the ones that hold you back. Once you see clearly, mistakes become lessons rather than labels. The power of reflection lies in its ability to turn reaction into strategy. Life is unpredictable. Events happen that are outside your control. People act in ways you cannot anticipate. Circumstances change, and if you simply react each day, you are at the mercy of these forces. But if you take time to review, you gain perspective. You see patterns. You see cause and effect. You see your influence, your choices, your impact. You see what you can control and what you cannot. And from that clarity, you can respond intentionally rather than react impulsively. Reflection also turns effort into meaning. Without it, effort is just movement. With it, effort becomes purpose. When you take the time to examine your day, you can ask questions like, did this task move me closer to my goals? Or was it just activity? Did this interaction build trust, or did I avoid responsibility? Did I honor my values in this decision, or did I compromise? These questions are not trivial. They are the difference between a life that feels busy and a life that feels aligned. The daily review is not about perfection. It is about direction. You do not need to have accomplished everything. You do not need to have executed flawlessly. You need to know where you stand. You need to see clearly. Because without that clarity, progress is random. With that clarity, progress is intentional. Consider this: two people work equally hard. One is busy every day, moving fast, taking action, but never pauses to reflect. The other is busy, yes, but takes even a few minutes each day to review, to ask hard questions, to observe patterns. Who will improve faster? Who will avoid repeated mistakes? Who will make decisions that actually matter? The answer is obvious. Reflection is the multiplier of effort. It turns the same energy into far greater results. Reflection also builds resilience. Life does not always go as planned. Obstacles arise, failures happen, and when you are committed to review, you do not collapse under these pressures. You see them as data, not disasters. You understand what can be adjusted, what can be learned, and what can be let go. You build the habit of analyzing rather than blaming, of learning rather than lamenting. You strengthen your ability to course correct, to adapt, to endure. Most importantly, reflection keeps you honest with yourself. It prevents you from slipping into denial, from rationalizing excuses, from inflating your own narrative. It forces you to confront the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes you did not act as you said you would. Sometimes you prioritized comfort over growth. Sometimes you avoided responsibility. And that honesty is not a punishment, it is a liberation. Because once you acknowledge the truth, you can change it. The daily review is a tool for transformation, not because it guarantees success, but because it guarantees awareness. And awareness, applied consistently, leads to action. Action leads to habit. Habit leads to identity. And identity, over time, shapes the life you live. Reflection also teaches patience. Progress is rarely immediate. Effort does not always yield instant results. And without review, it is easy to give up, thinking that what you are doing does not matter. But when you track your actions and observe patterns, you begin to see slow growth. You see small wins. You notice improvement that may have gone unnoticed in the moment. And those small wins accumulate, building momentum that feels unstoppable over time. In essence, reflection transforms every day into an opportunity. Every day becomes a lesson. Every experience, even failure, becomes fuel. The daily review allows you to extract wisdom from ordinary moments. It allows you to find meaning in routine. It allows you to take control of your trajectory. If you want to grow, you cannot rely on memory alone. Memory is biased. Memory is selective. Memory is often self-serving. You must record, examine, and question. You must measure what matters. You must analyze your actions with honesty. Only then can you identify what is working and what is not. And here is the final truth. Reflection is not optional. You cannot outsource it. You cannot skip it. You cannot rely on motivation, inspiration, or luck to do the work for you. If you do not review, you drift. You repeat mistakes. You waste effort. You sacrifice the life you could have had for the illusion of busyness. The people who achieve what others do not are not superhuman. They do not have more talent or luck. They have learned to review. They have learned to stop, to observe, to analyze, to adjust. They have learned that progress is not a product of activity alone, but of intentional reflection applied consistently. So pause, look back, ask the hard questions, celebrate the small wins, confront the failures, extract lessons, identify patterns, adjust, and recommit. Reflection is not passive, it is active, it is not avoidance, it is engagement, it is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Without it, effort is wasted. With it, effort becomes meaningful. When you make reflection a daily practice, you transform every day into a building block. You create continuity. You create awareness. You create accountability. And in doing so, you do not just progress, you evolve. Because progress without reflection is movement without direction. Reflection without action is wasted insight. But when you pair reflection with accountability, with the courage to correct course, with the willingness to recommit, you create something far more powerful than either alone, consistent, deliberate, unstoppable growth. This is why the daily review is not optional. It is not extra. It is not an add-on for those who have time. It is the tool that converts effort into results, mistakes into lessons, and activity into progress. It is the mechanism that ensures your ambition does not drift. It is the daily act that turns intention into reality. And that is why reflection is not merely a practice. It is the engine of transformation. Most people want change, but they want it to be easy. They want growth without examination. They want results without accountability. They want progress without discipline. And in that desire for convenience, they miss a fundamental truth. You cannot improve what you do not measure, and you cannot measure what you do not examine. Clarity is not a nice to have. It is the foundation of control, of accountability, of real growth. The daily review is where clarity begins. It is not a moment of judgment. It is not a tool for self-punishment. It is a mirror. And mirrors are unforgiving. They do not hide your habits, your choices, or your compromises. They show you exactly what is happening. They show you the alignment or misalignment between your intentions and your actions, and it is in this alignment or the lack of it that you discover the truth about your progress. Without measurement, we wander. Without examination, we repeat mistakes. Most people believe that effort alone leads to improvement. They think that working hard, putting in hours, pushing through discomfort is sufficient. And while effort is important, effort without awareness is blind. You can run a marathon, but if you are running in the wrong direction, what have you truly accomplished? Clarity gives you direction. It illuminates the path between where you are and where you want to be. It allows you to distinguish between activity and progress. It helps you recognize the decisions, the behaviors, and the habits that actually matter. When you review your day, you start to see the patterns that define you, patterns you may have ignored for months or even years. You see what strengthens you and what drains you. You see what moves you forward and what holds you back. The daily review forces you to ask hard questions. Did my actions reflect my priorities? Did I spend my time on what matters? Or was I distracted by what was easy, convenient, or immediately gratifying? Did I honor my commitments to myself, to others, to my vision, or did I compromise without even noticing? These questions are uncomfortable because they demand honesty. They require you to confront the reality that the life you are living may not fully align with the life you claim to want. And yet, discomfort is not the enemy of growth. Avoidance is. Every moment you avoid examining your choices, every day you skip reflection, you give your habits the power to define your life. You let inertia dictate your outcomes. You allow misalignment to persist. You drift, and the longer you drift, the more difficult it becomes to reclaim control. The people who succeed, the people who grow consistently, are not the ones who have perfect days. They're not the ones who never fail. They're the ones who measure what matters, who examine their actions, and who take responsibility for the patterns they create. They understand that improvement is not accidental. It is deliberate. It is intentional. And it begins with clarity. When you measure what matters, you create accountability. You stop relying on vague intentions, fleeting motivation, or external validation. You stop hoping that good habits will somehow emerge spontaneously. You take control. You see the gap between where you are and where you want to be, and you can take the steps necessary to close it. Without measurement, progress is guesswork. With measurement, progress is strategy. But measurement alone is not enough. You must also examine. You must analyze your results, your choices, your patterns. You must confront the uncomfortable truths about how you spend your time, how you react under pressure, how you handle failure, how you prioritize what matters versus what is easy. Examination turns raw data into insight. It allows you to understand why things happen, not just that they happened. And insight creates opportunity. This is why the daily review is transformative. It does not simply document your actions. It transforms them into knowledge. It shows you where you succeeded and why. It shows you where you failed and what you can learn. It gives context to effort and meaning to repetition. And over time, that knowledge accumulates. Patterns emerge, lessons crystallize, decisions become smarter, habits become intentional. Most people underestimate how powerful this process is because they are focused on results rather than the process. They want the finish line without understanding the steps required to reach it. They want success without reflection. They want discipline without clarity. And they fail to see that clarity is not optional. It is the lens through which all growth must pass. Without it, effort is scattered. Without it, intention is wasted. Without it, accountability is meaningless. Clarity also gives you control over your time and energy. So much of life is spent reacting to emails, to requests, to crises, to distractions. Without clarity, your energy is dispersed, your focus fragmented. You chase every fire, every opportunity, every demand, believing that movement equals progress. But without examining whether those movements align with your priorities, you are building a life that belongs to everyone else, not yourself. When you make the daily review a practice, you reclaim your focus. You begin to see which activities truly advance your goals and which simply consume your time. You notice where Your energy is being drained and where it is being invested wisely. You can make informed choices about how to spend each day, not based on habit or reaction, but on purpose and priority. Clarity also creates confidence. When you know where you stand, when you see your patterns, when you measure and examine your actions, you gain certainty about what works and what does not. You no longer rely on guesswork or hope. You have evidence. You have insight. You have a map that shows you the next step and the step after that. And that confidence is self-reinforcing. The more clarity you have, the more consistent your actions become. The more consistent your actions, the more your results reflect your true intentions. The daily review is a tool for life, not just for work. It teaches you to examine not only what you do, but who you are becoming. Are your actions aligned with your values? Are you showing up as the person you claim to want to be? Are you building habits that reinforce the identity you aspire to? These questions are not theoretical. They are practical. They determine the trajectory of your life. Clarity also exposes hidden opportunities. When you review, patterns emerge that were invisible in the noise of daily life. You see where small changes can have an outsized impact. You notice opportunities to improve efficiency, strengthen relationships, develop skills, or take decisive action that you may have overlooked. Without reflection, these opportunities remain invisible, and your growth is limited by what you happen to notice by chance. Most people skip this process because it is uncomfortable. They fear confronting the truth about their choices. They fear realizing they have wasted time, missed opportunities, or fallen short of their potential. But the alternative, avoiding measurement and examination, is far worse. Avoidance leads to drift, stagnation, and regret. And regret, unlike discomfort, accumulates quietly, leaving you years later with a life that feels smaller than it could have been. The daily review teaches discipline not as punishment, but as guidance. It trains you to notice, to measure, to examine, to adjust. It gives structure to effort and meaning to repetition. It allows you to see the impact of your decisions before they become irreversible patterns. It is the mechanism that converts chaos into clarity, energy into focus, and effort into results. And perhaps most importantly, clarity gives you freedom. When you understand your patterns, you are no longer enslaved by them. You can choose differently. You can redirect your energy. You can stop repeating mistakes. You can build momentum with purpose rather than hope. Clarity liberates you from the illusion of busyness and puts you in control of your trajectory. Without clarity, even the best intentions can lead to frustration. With clarity, even small actions compound into extraordinary results. The daily review is the tool that ensures you do not drift. It is the act that separates those who are busy from those who are deliberate, those who react from those who lead, those who drift from those who thrive. Measure what matters, examine what you measure, adjust your actions based on what you learn. Repeat daily. That is how clarity becomes control. That is how accountability becomes real. That is how effort becomes meaningful. That is how the life you want is deliberately built, one day at a time. And the remarkable truth is this: the people who consistently achieve what others dream of are not smarter. They are not more talented. They are not luckier. They are simply clearer. They see the truth about their actions, their patterns, and their priorities, and they adjust. They review. They examine. They commit, and they keep doing it day after day, long after the excitement fades, long after motivation wanes, long after intensity passes. This is how clarity creates control. This is how examination converts effort into results. This is how accountability is made actionable. And this is why the daily review is not optional. It is the engine of deliberate growth. Most people spend their lives waiting for a breakthrough. They dream about a future they want, but rarely pause to consider that the life they desire is created not in grand, sweeping gestures, but in the small, deliberate choices they make every single day. They assume the future is distant, that it belongs to luck, timing, or someone else's design. And yet, the reality is far simpler and far more empowering. Your future is written in your daily choices. Every day we are handed a blank page. How we fill that page determines who we become. Every action, every decision, every word, every commitment, and every moment of integrity or compromise is like a letter being written into that story. Most people do not see it that way. They underestimate the power of incremental decisions. They focus on the next big milestone or the next dramatic change, ignoring the fact that the cumulative weight of ordinary decisions builds the architecture of their lives. The daily review is the tool that allows you to see this clearly. It is the mechanism that transforms scattered actions into deliberate creation, because when you review your day, you can ask one critical question. Did today move me closer to the person I say I want to become? This question is deceptively simple, yet it carries extraordinary power. Because life will always tempt you with distractions, delays, and shortcuts. Life will always offer the easier, more comfortable path, and most people choose it day after day, year after year, without noticing the subtle drift. And then, decades later, they wonder why the life they live feels so different from the one they imagined. Your daily choices are the bridge between today and the future you want. Each choice is a vote for the version of yourself you are becoming. Some choices are obvious: completing a task, keeping a commitment, pursuing a goal. Others are subtle: choosing patience over irritation, courage over avoidance, integrity over compromise. The remarkable truth is that both types matter. The grand gestures are built on a foundation of small, consistent decisions. The life you want is not constructed overnight. It is composed, moment by moment, decision by decision. Most people fail to recognize this because they are obsessed with outcomes rather than the process. They want results without accountability, dreams without discipline, transformation without reflection. They chase milestones, believing that achieving them will magically make them the person they want to be. But transformation is not a byproduct of achievement. It is a product of consistent, intentional action. The daily review is where this principle becomes tangible. It is the moment when you stop relying on memory, emotion, or hope, and instead confront reality. What did I do today that aligns with my values? What actions advance my goals? What choices reinforce the person I want to become? And what decisions, perhaps small, perhaps seemingly inconsequential, pulled me away from that vision? This is not a practice of judgment. It is a practice of awareness. Awareness precedes action. You cannot change what you do not see. You cannot improve what you do not measure. And you cannot create what you do not observe. The daily review gives you the lens to see the patterns that determine your trajectory. It allows you to recognize when habits are serving you and when they are silently steering you in the wrong direction. Your future is not determined by the big dramatic events. It is determined by how you respond to the small, ordinary moments, the ones most people ignore. Did you show up for your commitments today, even when it was inconvenient? Did you choose discipline over comfort? Did you practice the skills, the habits, and the behaviors that will compound over time? Or did you allow distractions, excuses, and inertia to dictate your actions? Every choice counts. Every day counts. And the cumulative effect of these choices is what defines your future. You cannot outwork inconsistency. You cannot outsmart neglect. You cannot outmaneuver the consequences of repeated small decisions that go unexamined. And yet, this is exactly what most people attempt to do. They hope that one day something dramatic will compensate for a lifetime of unnoticed choices. But the truth is that there is no substitute for deliberate daily action. There is no hack, no secret, no shortcut that replaces consistent, intentional choice. Your future will be built on the sum of the decisions you make today, tomorrow, and the day after. This is why the daily review is so powerful. It allows you to see these decisions clearly, evaluate them honestly, and commit to better choices moving forward. Reflection also creates momentum. Many people underestimate how small actions compounded daily produce extraordinary results. Writing a page, practicing a ski, completing a single disciplined task. These actions seem insignificant in isolation, and yet, when repeated consistently, they accumulate into skills, habits, and identity. Momentum is not created by occasional bursts of energy. It is created by the disciplined repetition of deliberate action. The daily review is the mechanism that ensures you recognize this momentum, reinforce it, and protect it from drift. Your daily choices are also a measure of your integrity. Integrity is not tested in moments of ease. It is tested in the small, invisible moments when no one is watching. When you choose effort over avoidance, honesty over convenience, courage over comfort, you are writing the story of who you are. And the daily review forces you to confront the truth about these choices. Did you honor your commitments to yourself? Did you act in alignment with your values, or did you let your intentions remain abstract, unmanifested in action? The remarkable thing about the daily review is that it converts hindsight into foresight. By examining today, you gain insight for tomorrow. By seeing where you fell short, you can adjust. By seeing where you succeeded, you can reinforce. This is how your choices compound into progress. This is how consistency becomes growth. This is how accountability shapes your future. Most people fail to see this because they focus on what they cannot control. They obsess over circumstances, over what others do, over outcomes beyond their influence. And in doing so, they surrender their power. The daily review brings the focus back where it belongs, on you, on your actions, your decisions, your integrity, your effort. The future you want is created by what you control, the choices you make, and the habits you build. Time is the ultimate amplifier. One small choice repeated daily becomes massive over months and years. One day of alignment builds momentum for the next. One act of discipline reinforces your identity. One decision to prioritize what matters compounds into a life of purpose. And conversely, one day of neglect, one compromise, one act of avoidance repeated over time compounds into regret, frustration, and lost potential. The daily review is not about perfection. It is about awareness and correction. It is about ensuring that your choices, as ordinary as they may seem, are aligned with the extraordinary life you want to create. It is about recognizing that the person you will become tomorrow is being written by the decisions you make today. When you take this seriously, life changes. You stop blaming circumstance, time, or luck for your current situation. You stop waiting for motivation, inspiration, or the perfect moment. You start seeing that every action, every decision, every habit is a brushstroke on the canvas of your future. And once you see this, you reclaim control. You reclaim responsibility. You reclaim the power to create. Most people never realize this. They drift through life hoping for external fixes, while ignoring the power of their daily choices. They overestimate the significance of rare events and underestimate the impact of routine. And yet, history, experience, and the lives of high achievers prove it over and over. Consistency, accountability, and deliberate daily action are the true architects of success. The daily review ensures you do not drift. It gives structure to your reflection. It forces you to confront your choices, evaluate their impact, and recommit to what matters. It reminds you that the life you want is not a distant dream. It is the sum of your actions today, tomorrow, and every day after. Your future is not determined by hope. It is not determined by luck. It is not determined by extraordinary bursts of effort. It is determined by what you do consistently, intentionally, and honestly every day. Every decision you make is a vote for the person you are becoming, and the daily review is the mechanism that allows you to cast those votes with awareness and purpose. Show up. Review your actions, evaluate your choices, adjust where necessary, recommit to alignment with your values and goals. Repeat every day. This is how accountability shapes your life. This is how small, deliberate choices compound into extraordinary outcomes. This is how the future you want is written. Not by chance, not by circumstance, but by the deliberate, consistent choices you make today. Every day counts. Every choice counts. And when you make the daily review a habit, you are no longer at the mercy of chance or circumstance. You are the author of your life. You are the architect of your future. You are accountable, intentional, and deliberate. And that is the power of realizing that your future is written in your daily choices. As we bring this journey to a close, there is one truth that must resonate deeply. Accountability is not an abstract concept. It is not a principle you can admire from afar or a habit you can pick up once a week. It is the deliberate daily practice of observing yourself honestly, of measuring your actions, of confronting reality, and of making choices that align with who you truly want to become. The daily review is not a ritual of judgment. It is a tool of empowerment. It is where awareness meets intention, where effort meets direction, and where reflection meets action. Most people live their lives drifting from one day to the next, believing that progress is a matter of luck, motivation, or external circumstance. They wait for inspiration to strike, for the perfect moment to arrive, for something dramatic to force change. And while those moments are rare, daily choice is always present. The truth is that the life you desire is not waiting for some distant event. It is being written right now, in the decisions you make each day, in the way you respond to challenges, in the habits you cultivate, and in the integrity with which you honor your commitments. Each day is a vote for the version of yourself you will become. The power of the daily review is that it makes this visible. It allows you to see patterns, both positive and negative. It allows you to confront the small compromises, the unnoticed distractions, and the repeated behaviors that either advance or erode your progress. When you pause to reflect, you no longer drift blindly. You gain clarity, you gain insight, you gain control. And with control comes choice, the power to correct, to adjust, and to recommit. Every day that you review your actions, you strengthen the bridge between your intentions and your results. Accountability is not punishment. It is freedom. Freedom from excuses, freedom from self-deception, freedom from the drift that erodes potential. When you face the truth of your actions daily, you reclaim ownership over your life. You understand that motivation alone is fleeting, and that what truly matters is consistency, honesty, and the courage to act in alignment with your values. Progress is rarely dramatic, but it is always deliberate. Success is not a single event. It is the accumulation of countless small, intentional decisions made repeatedly over time. Your future is not written in distant possibilities. It is written in the pages of today. Every choice you make, every action you take or fail to take is a letter in that story. The daily review ensures that these letters reflect your values, your intentions, and your visio. And for who you want to be. It is the tool that transforms effort into purpose, reflection into insight, and consistency into identity. So embrace it. Make the daily review your compass, your mirror, your accountability in action. Pause each day. Observe honestly. Measure what matters. Adjust where necessary. Recommit to alignment. Repeat. In doing so, you will no longer drift through life passively. You will actively author the story of your future. You will shape a life of integrity, intention, and impact. And in that daily act of awareness, you will discover the extraordinary power of accountability, that the life you dream of is not distant or abstract. It is being created by the choices you make today.